Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Blue Heron Sunset, and I'm sipping on some peach tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are fluorescent orange, titanium white, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, ultramarine blue, Mars black, and chrome yellow. And of course you can switch those up as well. And for my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'm going to be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 3/4 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 4 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 0 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up too. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a few additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link to my shop where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size of the canvas to the same types of paints. You could also in my shop, there's a link for my brushes that I use, so you could purchase those individually or with the kit, whatever you'd like to do. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting a background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush to paint, but I'm going to use my medium round brush to create a custom color. We're going to be using white, orange, and brown in this step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a light peachy color, and that peach is going to be the dominant color for my background, but I will also create a light area where my sun is going to be, as well as I'm going to bring it a little bit darker down towards the bottom of the canvas with some brown. So I have pre-mixed my peach color on my palette, which is right here. This color that I created is a simple mixture of mostly white and just a little bit of that fluorescent orange, maybe a little bit more than that. And I'm just going for kind of a pastel peach type of a color that's going to be the undertone for my sky as well as my water. It's going to give it a nice warmth to the atmosphere. So that's the color that I'm headed for. I'm going to put my medium brush in my water cup, just get that out of the way. I'm going to pick up my large brush and the peach color, and I'm going to start painting the background in. I'm just using a long left to right type of a brush stroke. You can even kind of almost like crisscross it a little bit. That way you'll ensure that you've got good coverage. You don't have to worry about this being full 100% coverage, because we are going to be doing a second layer on it with lots of other colors. So if you don't get it 100% covered, no worries, because again, we'll tackle that with a second layer. I did leave a little bit of a light area in through here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up white on my dirty brush, and I'm going to create this lighter area in through here. It doesn't have to go all the way white. Just something that'll get you started with that lighter area for the sky, or for the sun. And then I'm going to just kind of push my brush a little bit harder to start releasing the rest of that peach that was in my bristles. And then what I'm going to do, just kind of blending this out a little bit in through here, I'm going to pick back up my peach color, and I'm going to go almost down to the bottom of my canvas with this peach color, and then I'll start introducing brown as well. So again, just kind of bringing this peach down in through here, and then what I'll do is once I'm almost all the way down to the bottom, I'm going to start picking up brown on my dirty brush. So this is going to give the water a little bit more depth as it's going down towards the bottom of the canvas, and kind of bringing it into just closer to the viewer, the appearance of closer to the viewer. I just picked up some brown, as you can probably tell, on my dirty brush, and I'm just going to blend it into that peach color down at the bottom. It doesn't have to, again, doesn't have to be a perfect blend. This is just getting that additional tone into the water down at the bottom. And then once I've got this done, I will be using this same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be finishing the sky. I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So I'm going to be using my large bristle brush to paint. The colors that I'm going to use are my peach, white, yellow, blue, and brown, and orange. So all of my colors except for black. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a loose horizon line that's going to be about halfway down my canvas, just so I know where to stop my sky. We can clean up that horizon when we go to do the water, but it'll just be something that'll get us started. I'm going to be creating some nice clouds going over in that right hand side, so they're dark clouds over there and have the effects of the sun setting glows, and I'm going to put my sunset over in this area. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first pick up a tiny bit of my orange paint on my brush, just a little bit, so I can create a soft horizon line. I'm going to find myself about halfway up or down my canvas, give myself a little tiny marker, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the right hand side and give myself a little tiny marker. I don't need this to be a really heavy, clean line, so what I'm going to do, just to ensure I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, I just kind of wipe it off on my paper towel, and I'm just going to go swiftly, quickly, from this marker to this marker. Just keep your eye on the prize, which is that other marker, and that should get you a fairly straight line. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start planning out where I want my clouds and stuff to be. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my orange, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of soft kind of clouds over in through here. So I'm using this kind of circular type of brush stroke, almost like a scrubbing or scumbling type of effect. So it becomes darker in some areas, and then as you start to run out of paint, it'll be lighter. So you'll have varying tones of that particular color. And you can do it with any color that you want. As I go through this process, I am also looking for areas that might not be fully painted on that first layer. So for instance, I see up in this right hand corner, it is a little bit unpainted or not fully rendered by that first coat. So I just picked up some more of my peach color on my dirty brush to get my orange clouds to blend in, and also to make sure that I have painted the entire canvas. So this is going to give me that second coat of paint everywhere that I need it. I'm going to add more of those orange clouds, maybe a little bit firmer, kind of just in through here. Just maybe a little bit, that's a little bit too much paint on my brush, maybe a little bit going up. I want these ones to be just a little bit more bold, so I just put a little bit more orange on my brush, and I want some peekaboo spots of this peachy light sky behind it. That's the way in my head I'm seeing the peach as like the color of the sky, and then these more vibrant or bold colors are going to be the clouds being affected by the sunset. So that's looking pretty good for me. Before I start going into my dark blues and stuff, what I want to do is I want to kind of get this sun in here. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to create my sun. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of white paint. I washed and dried my brush. I'm picking up some white paint. I just want it somewhere in this vicinity in through here. And I'm just having like a soft hazy sun, so I don't need to have super clean edges to it. And then once I've got a good area where I want that bright part to be, I'm going to pick up just a teeny tiny bit of yellow paint. When I say teeny tiny bit, I just have a dot on the corner of my brush, because this yellow will be super bright and go really far away, especially if you have white underneath it like I did, or a light color underneath it like I did. So that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my yellow and my orange, just a little tiny bit of each on my brush at the same time. That's too much orange. And then I'm going to just kind of add that on the exterior of my sun rays. I'm going to pick up some of my peach now, just to get that all to blend in as much as I want it. And you can have yours more vibrant than mine, more subtle than mine. Wherever your visual preference is, I always suggest that that's where you bring your painting to, because that's going to be where it's the most personal to you and visually appealing to you as well. So that's looking pretty good. I got some nice glow on the outside of where my sun's going to be. You can even put a little bit at the bottom of it. That looks pretty. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start incorporating some darker clouds, kind of just drifting in front or along with these orangey ones. I don't necessarily want to have white and yellow on my brush to start the dark clouds, so I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my ultramarine blue. So just washing and drying my brush, picking up a little bit of my ultramarine blue, and I'm going to start my darker clouds. So you're going to notice as these go right on top or near that orange, you're going to get these really great dark tones as it dries. I'm even in a minute going to start picking up some brown with my blue, and I'll probably pick up a little bit of that orange as well. But I want to kind of get a good amount of this blue on here where I want it to be, and then I'll start incorporating some other tones into it. And of course, my blue is on the transparent side, which means that you can see through it. I use a student grade paint, which is very fluid and allows for great layering, which is what I like to do with my paintings. So I will in essence kind of do multiple layers to get the effect that I'm looking for. I'm just kind of letting these kind of intermingle with my orange ones. Again, I'm just using a little bit of paint, almost letting it dry or making it dry by using this scrubbing type of brush stroke along the way. And I'm trying not to overwork it, which means I'm not putting too much paint on and getting it to almost lift off the canvas. Sometimes if you use too much paint, what'll happen, and you're scrubbing it like this, what'll happen is you'll start lifting the paint off of the canvas. So that's looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of my orange and brown on my brush at the same time on my dirty brush. So I didn't wash my brush, and this is where I can start to get these even darker. I think I want a little bit more blue too. I want nice kind of deep dark tones in these guys over in through here. And of course you can get yours as dark or as light as you want. You'll notice if you're using the brown, the blue, and the orange in conjunction with one another, they will get darker as they dry. So don't be alarmed if it ends up being, darker than you had thought it was going to be as it was when it was wet. It will, like I said, dry a little bit darker. So that's looking pretty good. I feel like I want a couple of darker clouds kind of drifting over in front. Think of these dark clouds as in front of the that sky, so they can take on a pretty dark, almost silhouetted appearance with that lit up sun behind them. And you can pull them as far as you want. You can have them as bright or as dark as you want. That's looking pretty good. Now I want just maybe a couple little highlights on some of these. So I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit of maybe my peach and white on my dirty brush, and you can just add little pops of highlights along some of these edges, and that's going to give you a softer appearance to them. I'm not doing much, just little tiny pieces of softness here and there. And after I get this done, once I've got it pretty much in its formation that I'm looking for, I would just start to kind of fiddle with it. Like maybe I want a couple of these clouds coming out just a little bit further, closer to that sun. Maybe I want a little bit more up in this corner. So I just start fiddling with it. Maybe I want a little bit more blue, so I pick up a tiny bit more blue on my brush and start deepening the color in some of those. So it's going to be, again, a visual preference on your part if you want yours to have lots of dark blue clouds, or or a lot of the orange tones to make it look really sunsetty and take on that appearance. It's going to be up to you wherever your visual preference is. I think I want a little bit more orange over here on this side, so I just picked up a little bit more of that orange on my dirty brush, and then I'm going to probably just let mine dry and fiddle with it a little bit more, and then we're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got yours done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the water. I'm going to use my large bristle brush, and I'm going to use the same colors that I used in the sky. So white, yellow, peach, blue, brown, and orange. We will be doing a reflection of the bird as well as some ripples in the water later. This is just, in essence, if the bird didn't exist, what would this water look like? So this is where I'm going to get almost like a loose mirror image of the sky into the water. And I mean loose, which means we don't have to have it exactly one for one. When you see a reflection in the water, it can get skewed. So the colors can be longer, they can overlap one another. The size of this could be longer or shorter. So everything can get skewed in that water. What I'm really looking to do is just get kind of a color pattern of what's happening up here translated down into the water. So I'm going to start over in my sun. I'm going to start with some white paint on my brush, and I'm going to say, okay, here's where I've got my horizon line. So I can almost just go right across that horizon line and think of it like this sun is maybe twinkling the whole top of the water by that horizon line. So because the horizon line is the closest to the sun. So I can take just a little bit of white and go almost right across that horizon line. This is where, if you wanted to, you could clean up any kind of crooked lines on your horizon line, but it doesn't have to be all the way white. This is just something that's going to give you that lit up area at the top of the water. So now that I've got that, I'm going to put just a little bit more white up in through here, and then I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my yellow. And remember, just a teeny tiny bit of yellow on your dirty brush. And this is where I can get a little bit of that reflection of the glow around that sun. And I'm using a very long kind of rubbing left to right brush stroke. So again, it takes on, maybe there's little ripples in the water, maybe there's movement that is being translated a little bit. I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow and my orange now, which is what I did up into here. So a little bit of yellow and orange. So again, I'm just trying to emulate a similar color pattern to what I have up above. So now that I've got this side kind of emulated a little bit, I think I want a little bit more yellow. A little bit more yellow. Come over in through here. Just get that water to go just a little bit more contrasting. There we go. That works. And you can always bring back some of that white too. I just wanted to have a little bit more intensity in those colors in the water, because the water can be deeper too, and it can take on whatever colors are in the water. So if that water is really dark, it could, before the sunset reflection happens, it could take on some of those darker colors within the water. So again, it can get skewed. I'm just looking for some kind of color pattern. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to start working on the the clouds now. So I just wipe my, well, actually I'm going to wash my brush so I don't have too much paint, too much of that white on there. I'm going to start with the orange, which is kind of how I started with the sky itself. And I'm just looking for, again, color pattern. So I have here, this is going to be, you can always go with whatever a color is in relationship to something else. So if this is almost as high as my sun over here, when I go down into the water, wherever the top of that sun is, that's about where I want to put this one. And it's about the same distance away from the edge of my canvas. So something like that. And it goes in the reverse upward. So if that goes up, this is going to come down. So something like that. Again, doesn't have to be exactly one for one. Just looking for something that is going to give us a little bit of an interpretation of what is happening up in the sky. I'm going in the wrong direction, aren't I? I'm going that way. I need to be going this way. This is the direction I want to go. And there we go. And up and through here. So it is very difficult to go backwards and go in a reverse direction. We've got one coming in through here. And again, I'm just kind of going left to right, giving myself the reflection of what's going on up top down into the water below. Nothing perfect because I had that darker color underneath. It's going to look darker as it dries as well. And then this goes, we'll call it up in through here, and then just kind of pull this down, something like that. That'll work. And again, just something similar, nothing exact. That looks pretty good. I'm going to bring the blues in now. Got a little spot over here with a little bit of orange. So we're going to bring that down in through here. And now I'm going to pick up a little bit of my blue. So without washing my brush, I'm going to start this in through here. And again, I can leave some of that lightness right at that horizon line because that's going to give you that, that glimmer or that shimmer along the edge of the horizon. And again, all nature elements are different from one another. So as you're doing yours and you're saying, mine doesn't look exactly like that, it's, you know, much more bright, or my colors are deeper, they've got more, as I'm trying not to get confused here, we've got a big blue one in through here. Your colors may be different. You might be using a different type of paint than I'm using. You might be using a different kind of brush stroke than I'm using. You might be using a different kind of brush than I'm using. So know that yours can certainly look much different than mine. You just want to do whatever is coming naturally to you as you go through your painting process. Everybody paints differently. Everybody's got different thoughts, their hands work differently. So just know I'm just giving you these, if I can not get confused, these loose suggestions, giving you guidance on how to create certain things that will help build your painting skills. But you can take these ideas and these thoughts and bend it, twist it, and shape it into whatever is working well for you and is speaking to you. So that looks pretty good. I need a little bit more darkness in these, but first I'm going to kind of get some of this blue coming up over in through here. And again, I used a darker color down at the bottom of my canvas on purpose, so that way I can get these deeper, darker tones towards the bottom of my canvas, so we have that skewed look from the depths of the water. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to pick up some brown paint now. I'm going to put some brown in through here. And again, I'm just doing this loose interpretation of what I'm seeing up above. So that's looking pretty good. And I'm using more of a left to right kind of brush stroke as opposed to the circular brush stroke that I was using up above. Bringing this all the way over here. And it can be smoother, it can be, you know, softer looking, whatever works for you. I think I need this one, which is going to go somewhere in through here and like that. I think I need a little bit more blue in it as well. And then once I've got this on, I will start to, I think I want some more orange in my water because I want it to be almost more strong of a color than up there. So I just picked up more orange, and I'm going to just make sure that I've got this really almost I don't want to call it fiery looking, but definitely taking on a lot of that orange sunsetty type of color to it. And if you find as you're doing yours that your paint is too wet, it's not, it's not blending or moving the way that you want to, you might just have to take a little bit of a break, give your canvas a minute to dry. I often go pretty darn fast when it comes to layering on these elements, but as you're going through yours, if your canvas again is not drying quick enough, you're not getting exactly the appearance that you wanted, it might just be because your paint is still too wet and it's not allowing for it to kind of dry and develop the way that you want it to. It might be lifting off the canvas and all that good stuff. So if you're finding that you're having any of those issues, just let it dry for a minute. You can come back and do another layer. I just picked up a little bit more blue paint because I feel like I want a little bit darker in through here. And then I'm going to let mine dry and see if there's any additional parts that I want to account for. I think I might put a little bit, I'll do that when I do my ripples. We're going to have ripples and stuff where the bird is, but I don't even know what color I picked up, blue. But once you've got yours to acceptable stage for your painterly eye, we're going to be using our drawing utensil for the next step. So you can put this brush away, take out a I'm going to be using pencil, you could use chalk or whatever works for you, and get ready for the next step. Alright, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to draw an outline for our bird. I'm going to be using my pencil. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that is comfortable to you. I'm going to guide you through a series of markers and basic shapes, and by the time we're done, we'll have this big, huge, beautiful bird flying through the air. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start you off with a circle and an oval, and then we'll build everything else off of that. So I'm going to find myself the center of my canvas, which I know my horizon line is already on the center horizontally, and then I'm going to find myself about halfway into that line. So for me, the center of my canvas is right about here. I'm going to go up from that, I would say maybe about 1.5 inches, and then over to the left about 2.5 inches. I'll find myself somewhere in through here. I'm going to draw myself a little circle that's about, it's maybe a little bit less than 1/2 inch tall by wide. So something like that is going to be my first shape. The next shape that I'm going to do is going to be an oval type of a shape. So I'm going to come below here onto my horizon line, and then I'm going to go about halfway between that and the edge of my canvas. So somewhere around here on my horizon line. I'm going to just make myself a little bit of a marker so I know where that's headed. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself I'm going to go up from that, I would say maybe about 1 inch, somewhere in through here. I'm going to make an oval type of a shape now, but the oval is going to be kind of diagonal. So I'm going to start in through here, and I'm going to just kind of give myself this oval type of a shape in through here. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just kind of starting us off to building the body. So something like that will work. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the bottom of this circle from here into about, I would say, maybe 1/2 inch down this oval, somewhere in through here, with a curvy type of a line. So I'm going to start here. This is going to be the neck of our bird. I'm going to go over to the left. I'm going to drop this down, not all the way to my horizon line, and then I'm going to drop it maybe a little bit lower than that, somewhere in through here, and then bring it back up, and then just curve it like that. So something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go diagonally from here about 1 inch, give myself a little bit of a marker like that, and then I'm going to connect the top of this circle to here. So this is going to be the top side of the neck. So something like this, drop it down in through here, and then curve it back up like that. And yours doesn't have to be perfect, exactly as mine. These birds can look a little different as they're in flight. Then I'm going to add myself a beak. So somewhere in the middle of the face on this right hand side, I'm going to bring this out I would say maybe about 1.5 inches is about the length of my beak. And we'll add the little feather off the head later. This is just for painting purposes. I'm going to give myself a leg. It's kind of 2 legs, but I think we're seeing this bird almost directly from the side, so it might be a little bit thicker than 1 leg, but it'll be the silhouette of the side of 2 legs. So I'm going to come off of here. Think of this as the little heron thigh bone, something like this. I'm going to come down, I would say maybe about 1.5 inches, something like this. Think of this as like the knee. I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but that's what I'm calling it. And then I'm going to give myself a diagonal type of line that's going to end up, this will be the tippy toe of one of the heron toes. So bring this diagonal like this. You can even curve it a little bit at that end, and then in through here, a little bit like this. Bring it like this, and then I'll put a little back toe on like this. So there's a couple of fingers in here, but we don't need to have that detail right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the wing on that's closest to the viewer. So from in through here, we're going to make kind of a wobbly type of a line, but I want to know where the tip of the wing is going to go. So if I find myself about almost halfway between here and this circle, somewhere in through about here, I'm going to go directly up from that a few inches, maybe almost halfway between the horizon line and here. This is about 1/4 way. I'm a little bit below that, so somewhere in through here. That'll be the tip of the wing. I'm going to connect here to here, but I need the, I don't know what it's called. We'll call it the shoulder of the wing. Is going to be almost halfway between here and here. Somewhere in through here, you can give yourself a little bit of a bump, and then you'll connect here to here, and then here to, we're going to have a little wing tip like that. I'm going to take now from the back end in through here. I can kind of disconnect this somewhere around here, and then I'm going to connect here all the way up to here with a bunch of bumpy lines, bumpy marks. So think of these as the tips of the feathers to the wing. So I've got them almost kind of pointing up in that direction, and then as I come down this side in through here, I'm just going to kind of give these whole bunch of little curves to the edge of here, and then we're just going to round this out in through here. So to know how like far out I brought this, it's definitely like mid-thigh in through here, and then just a little bit further for these feathers out in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself about halfway between here and here, along here, and give myself a little bit of a marker. And I'm going to make the other wing is going to be higher than here by about 1.5 inches. So go about 1.5 inches up here, and then about halfway between here and the edge of my canvas. So somewhere in this vicinity is going to be the tip of the far wing. So I can take from here, I'm going to give myself a little extra wing in through there. That's going to be the shoulder to mimic that part. And then, or this is a little feather. And then I'm going to bring this up in through here. The bottom part of this wing is going to be tucked behind here. So somewhere in this vicinity is going to be the bottom part of that wing. So I'm going to do a similar act where I do longer feathers kind of at the top, and then longer tips, I should say. And then as I come down this side, I will start making them more just bumps as opposed to individual kind of feather tips, or where you could see the separation between them, something like that. I need the tail feather now, so I'm going to come out from like this region in through here, just above that thigh, and just bring it out, I would say, a little bit past that knee. So somewhere in through here is going to give me where my tail feather is going to go. On this particular angle, we're going to see a little bit more of the of this side of the body feathers or wing feather. So I'm going to just give myself a little area in through there, and then I'm going to cut this out like this, and then just kind of give myself a whole bunch of little bumps in through here. And then I'm going to step back and see if I got everything. I think I need to just kind of bring this up in through here so I understand where that whole wing is going to go. This is going to be the body. And if you needed to or wanted to, you could totally erase that, a little bit of that oval shape and the circle shape. Not necessary. We're going to be painting over them. But I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to be using my medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your outline done, you can certainly make any little adjustments that you feel are necessary. And then you can put your drawing utensil away. Take out, I'm using a number 4 round brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the next step is I'm painting the base coat for my bird. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are brown, white, and black. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint various sections of the bird with a solid color, and then we'll add details to it later on in the painting process. So I'm going to start with a tan type of a color for the body and part of the wings. So I have created my tan on my palette here. How I got to this custom color is just brown and white. I didn't do any fancy mixing in through here. I'm just looking for something nice and neutral that I can use to add some highlights and shadows onto the lighter areas of the bird. So this is where I'm headed with this. Once I've got my tan color, I'm going to be painting in the beak, the head. Oh, my brush is really loaded, so that beak's going to be tough with this brush, but that's okay. When I have less paint on my brush, I'll go and do that beak. And this side of the bird is pretty much in the shadows because the light source is on the other side. So although on these particular birds, this part of the body is typically some form of whitish type of a color, it can have some grays in it and little black feathers and stuff like that, but it's on the shadowed side of the light source, so I can get away with doing this grayish type of a tone. I'm going to bring this all the way down the legs. I think I want a little bit, pull this up just a little bit higher for this area in through here. So something like that, and then just do this whole thigh area. Oh, now's the time that I have very little paint on my brush, so I could probably hit this beak in through here. And I'll be using a smaller brush for all the details on the face. But again, right now I'm just trying to get that base coat on here so we have a place to start. And you can, as you're going through this process, I did use a lead pencil, so my pencil will be pretty difficult to cover up or to get to disappear. But I know that the process that I'm using right now with the colors that I'm opting to use, that's going to be okay because they will, within the detail process, all of my pencil will get hidden. So I don't really have to worry too much about that. These little toes, we're going to be adding some black details on them as well, so no big deal in through there. I'm also going to use this tan color for part of this wing in through here. So I'm going to take this and color right in through here. Right, I want to go right alongside the and touch this wing in through here. I'm going to bring it maybe about 1/2 inch away from the bottom part in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of take it and do this section, this mid kind of section with this gray color. It won't look awesome right now, but once I've got the other feathers in place, it will look fantastic. And once I've got all of the details to it, it'll make sense. They have this these different layers of color of different feathers. So this is how I'm approaching it. I'm also going to put this gray in this little sliver of an area in through here. This is going to indicate the bottom part of this wing down in through here. And then I'm going to use this tan also. I might have called it gray, but it's tan. I'm going to use this a little bit on this side as well. So somewhere right where this part bumps out in through here, I'm just going to kind of do this little section like this and then just bring it back here. I'm going to leave a little tiny separating line between here and what I'm doing now, just so I kind of understand where I want those two to meet later. So something like that. So once I've got that on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to create a dark gray color that I'll be using for the dominant color of these feathers in through here. So I have already pre-mixed my color down on my palette. What this is just black with a little bit of white. I don't want it to go too light. I want it to be kind of the darker tone of that outer wing feathers. So somewhere in this, you can definitely tell that it's lighter than black, but it is definitely a gray color. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to color the base coat of this wing in through here. So as I do this, I'm going to pull it back, and when I meet this section here, I'm going to overlap it just a little bit. So something like that, and then just pull it and overlap it just a little bit. The tips of your feathers don't have to be perfect at this point, well, ever for that matter, but what I'm doing is I just kind of push my brush a little bit at that tip in order to get it to have kind of a cleaner edge to it. You could certainly, I just also added a touch of water to my brush, so the paint kind of sinks into the little holes of the canvas, so I thinned out my paint just a little bit. But if you do find that as you're doing this, it's not covering well for you, or you're not getting those clean little edges on the feathers, again, just moisten your paint a little bit. That'll give you the opportunity to get it to kind of sink into those holes a little bit. When I'm doing feathers, I'm always thinking about the direction of the feathers as well, especially when I'm getting into what could potentially be the, you could see the trajectory or where they're coming from. So I definitely am going to use a directional brush stroke because these are going to enter into this tan area. So as I'm doing it, I'm going to pull the feather back in the way that I feel it would be kind of entering into that part of the wing. So I'm pulling it, I put it at the tip, and then I'm pulling it back into that gray area a little bit in the direction that I feel it would be going. So it's kind of like this up here, and then as it comes towards here, because they all kind of converge at that top ridge of the wing. That's where the feathers kind of come out of. So that's how, that's the direction that they'd be going in. I'm going to also use this gray for the tail feather in through here. So this is going to just kind of come back like this. I need a little bit more water on my brush. Bring this in through here, and then I will do the outside wing with black. This one here I'm going to do with black paint. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm just going to do those feathers with black paint, a little bit of water to make sure that it's nice and fluid. So there we go. And then I'm going to do these ones with black. These ones are actually going to have an additional color to them, but the dominant color for me is black in these, so that's where I'm going with my base coat of them. And again, I'll pull it into that little tan area just a bit. We'll get them to overlap, those sections to overlap better on a future step, but starting this overlapping kind of process on the base coat, especially for wings, will definitely help the process. And you can see I'm skipping this section because I want to make sure that I pull them in the right direction. And I know for me, if I continue up here, I might continue doing them in that arc. So if I can switch directions or start from one end versus the other end, sometimes that helps me just to keep them going in the correct direction as they're entering that wing. And it's just one of those little, fail-safe things for me, because I know that for me, as I'm painting, sometimes I just get lost in my brush stroke and I'm not even really paying attention to what I'm supposed to be doing. I just kind of let my brush stroke take over, and that's when I run into trouble, because that's when I forget what my ultimate goal or mission was all along, which for me on feathers and wings, it's going in the correct direction. But if I start getting daydreaming and stuff, I tend to get a little lost. So again, I'm kind of trying to get them to all go in the direction of this ridge up at the top. And then I'm going to put just a little bit in through here where this meeting point was, just so I know that I've got that little separation. And then we're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the bird body, head, legs. Yeah, head, body, and legs. We'll do the wings for a future step. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, white, yellow, orange, blue, and brown. And if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding some facial details, color to the beak. I'm going to add the long iconic feather coming off the top of the head. We'll give some nice details to the body and the legs, and we'll be done. So I'm going to start with some white paint on my brush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the beak white so I can have a great place to put yellow color on top. So if I had tried to paint yellow right on top of that gray, it would have ended up like almost a green type of a tone, and I want it to be really yellow. So I'm going to put a nice base coat of white in through there. It's not going to be uber white, but what it's going to do is it's going to allow for a good base coat for the yellow color that I want to do. I'm going to also put some white paint on the face. So the face, I'm going to give a little kind of a cheek in through here. I'm going to just kind of pull this back. I am strategically leaving some of my gray color as shadowy type of areas, and you'll see how I do that. Like I left a little bit between the cheek and the beak. I left a little bit down at the bottom. I'm going to put a little bit of white. I'm still just picking up white right now. I'm going to put a little bit of white on what's going to be the forehead in through here. There's going to be a little eye that we'll put in a minute. I'm going to pull some of this back. I'm leaving a little section, a little dark area between the top of the head and this cheek, and that's just giving form to the head. And I'm going to pull this light area back in through here, and again you'll see in a minute how all of this makes sense. Just giving myself this little light area in through there. I'm going to pick up a little bit more white paint, give myself a little bit of a highlight down the side of this side of the body in through here. Without washing my brush right now, I'm going to pick up a touch of brown to get this light section to blend down into the bottom part of that neck. So that was in essence kind of creating another like tan type of a color, but I just keep picking up brown right now in order to get this to blend down like that. I'm going to just make sure I have a second coat in this little area in through here. So right now I'm just kind of adding form to this body and neck and stuff. Up in through here I just picked up some more white paint. I'm going to put some white up in through here, and my white is I use student grade paint, so it is not turning all of these areas super duper white. It's taking on some of that color that we put underneath, which is my which is what I did on purpose, so that way we can have these tonal shifts and little changes. I'm picking up a touch of brown right now just to give myself again some dark area down in through here like that, and then maybe right along this edge of this neck in through here. Just give myself a little bit of form in through there. As I'm coming down this leg in through here, I'm actually going to pick up some of that gray or the tan color that we created, which I didn't say I was going to use, but I just picked it up. I want to make sure I have a second layer in through here. A lot of this leg I am going to do with this. This is kind of like the belly leg area. It kind of, as I was looking at the references of these kind of birds, this neck goes into this belly, which goes into the thigh. So it's all connected, but in a fun way. So that looks good. I just picked up a tiny bit of white paint to come down into this thigh and through here. Again, just kind of giving a second coat with varying shades of the tan and brown in order to get this all to make sense. So that looks pretty good. While that's kind of sitting and drying, I'm going to tackle these legs. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, or the leg. I'm going to put a little bit of black paint on my brush, and I'm going to just kind of give myself what would be kind of the shadowy little spots in between the toes, and I'm really just kind of streaking in a little bit of black. Maybe there we see the little claws on there, so something like that. I'm going to give myself just a couple of streaks down the side of the leg, so maybe these are the little tendons in the ankle type of area. I'm also going to bring a couple of little black streaks up this thigh. It could be feathers, it could be tendons, just little kind of streaks in through there. I'm going to pull some of this black little streaks in through here for the tips of feathers on this underside, like this. Just kind of streaking this in. It could be feathers, it could be shadows, so you can really have just a loose interpretation with these strong contrast in colors, and it's going to allow for it to look nice and realistic. I'm also putting a little bit of this black underneath this neck in through here, so just little streaks of it is going to give you that appearance of it having good dimensions, some good feathers. I'm also going to use a little bit of this black right here in this shoulder area to kind of identify the wing area like this. Again, we'll be working on that wing a little bit more in a future step, but that looks pretty good. I think I'm actually gonna, while I have this black, put the eye in as well. So I just picked up a little bit more black. I'm gonna put a little circle in through here, maybe a little shadow, clean up the shadow underneath there. I'm gonna put that little crown type of color right above that eye, and then I'm going to pull this back. I'm going to put blue on it in a minute, but I just want to start it with black. Again, I'm using a watered down black paint to give myself these long, slender strokes. I'm also going to pull some of this down the back side of the neck. So again, just black is what I'm using right now. Get this down the back side of that neck. Maybe just a little feathers in there. That looks pretty good. So let's see, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to wash and dry my brush now. I want to put a little bit of like a orangey burnt sienna kind of accent color to the body. So I'm going to take a little bit of my orange and mix it with a little bit of brown. This is going to give me really close to a burnt sienna type of a color. So if you have burnt sienna, you could certainly use that as well. And then I'm just going to I'm going to put a little bit of it at the bottom of this leg in through here, just a itty bitty bit. I'm going to also put it a little bit in the back side of this neck. So this could end up looking like it's a little glow from the sunset. It could add to the colors of the bird. I'm picking up a little bit of my tan right now. Make sure this blends the way that I want it to. That's looking good. Now I'm going to work on the face. So washing and drying my brush again. I'm going to pick up some chrome yellow. I'm going to put it on the beak. So this is chrome yellow on top of that beak. Then I'm going to wipe my brush off, pick up a little bit of my orange, stick that a little streak of that right in that beak, just a little bit closer to the head. So something like that. Looks nice. I wiped my brush off. I'm going to pick up white paint and put a bright highlight right on the top. So as I was saying earlier that my white is transparent, the more layers I put on, the brighter it'll get, and it'll become very opaque where you can't see through it. So as I go through my painting process, if I want there to be that bright highlight, I can certainly make it happen. I'm going to put a little dot in the eye too. There we go. Now I wipe my brush off. I'm going to pick up some of my ultramarine blue to put that right on top of this black feather on top. So the ultramarine blue is probably going to disappear if it's right directly on the black. So I'm actually pulling it up just a little bit outside of the black area so you can see it. You could also use it with a touch of white as well if you wanted to. I'm actually going to pick up or use a touch of ultramarine blue and white so I can get a little, I actually have a little yellow on my brush. Hold on a second, I gotta get that yellow off. White or blue and yellow makes green. I don't want green on my bird, so I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm gonna put a little bit of a cool tone in through here, so I'm gonna use white with a touch of ultramarine blue. So think of this as just like a cool gray in through here on top of that brown, just again to give myself a little bit of extra brightness. I'm even going to pull this into the legs. So this is ultramarine blue and white. Just give myself, it's a blue heron, so I want there to be blue represented. I think that's pretty good. So once you've got that done, you can certainly fiddle with it as much as you want, but we're going to be using our medium brush for the next step. I'm picking up a touch more black right now just so I can get this back leg to stand out a little bit more. So you can put this small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the wings. I'm using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, blue, white, brown, and that little fun kind of burnt sienna mixture I use. So that was that orange and brown. And if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating the underside of this wing and the outer side of this wing, and then we'll do some little details on the tail feather, and by the time we're done we'll have it nice and rendered and a full second coat, and all the feathers will be looking wonderful. Like he can fly away. So I'm going to do this underside first. I'm going to first pick up some brown paint for this little section in through here. And I'm really just going to take it from what I call that ridge and just pull it back in this direction in through here. So pull it back and let it go in the direction of that that exterior wing. So here's the ridge in through here, and then just kind of pull it like this. And then they'll overlap. You'll be able to see a little bit of delineation between the two. And if you wanted to see even more like lines, so to speak, for the wings, just pick up a little bit more of the brown paint, and the thicker the brown paint is, the more you'll be able to kind of see those see light spots and dark spots. So if you have more brown paint on your brush, you'll get those darker areas, and because we have the light color underneath, it will the thinner the paint is, you'll be able to see that kind of streakiness, which will resemble the feathers. So that looks pretty good to me in that area. I'm going to put just a little bit in through here as well. Now what I'm going to do for the exterior, or the feathers towards the tip of the wings, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of blue and white on there. So I'm going to pick up, or I'm going to actually maybe pre-mix myself a little bit of blue and white like that, and then so that just blue plus a tiny bit of white paint. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it and give myself this little streak on one side of that feather. Just a little tiny streak, and that's going to get it to look like it is separated from each other. The little wings or the little feathers are separated from each other. I think that that's a little bit too dark or too bright down in through here. So I'm going to add a little bit of black back to this bottom section in through here. So I just wiped my brush off, picked up a little bit of black just to get a little bit more deeper tone in through there. And that's looking pretty good to me. I think I need a little bit of maybe a grayish tone in through here too. I'm picking up some of that tan color just to get a little bit at the end of these feathers, something like that. I think that looks pretty good. That was a little, just needed a little more separation in through there. That's a little funky area in through there. I'm going to pick up some of my tan and blue, the blue and white, tan, blue and white. I just want to close off this area in through here like that's, yeah, that looks good. All right. I'm going to go over to this wing here. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm actually going to put a little bit of black paint where these wings meet these wings. So just a tiny bit of black paint and water is on my brush. And I'm going to take just a little bit and give just a couple little streaks in through here. So it ends up reading as these are black wings, but they're black feathers, but they're just being highlighted by the fact that they're on the exterior wing, the exterior side of the wing. So just a little bit of black paint in through here. You can pull it into that lighter section. That works well. Now I'm going to, I just wiped my brush off. I'm going to pick up white plus that light blue color that we have. So this is white plus light blue. And I'm going to do this exterior section in through here, just bringing it right to the edge of those, of the other wing in through here, and then I'm just going to pull it like this in the direction that I first started those feathers in. So again, white plus that light blue mixture, and just pulling it in this towards those feathers. So if you can still see some of your tan underneath, that's awesome. That's just going to make it look even more natural. And I'm just making sure that I get this so it looks well. And if you bump into this feather in through here, you can just do a little touch up on that. That should be just black on those tips. And then I'm going to pick up that light blue mixture and then do the same thing I did with these guys on these guys. But because this is on the outside, it will most likely look a little bit lighter. And because we have a lighter base to it, as well as I might add a little bit more white to it in a minute. I just picked up a little bit of water on my brush because my paint was a little dry, but I didn't want to add more paint to it, so I just picked up a little bit of water, and you can see how I'm pulling these into the direction that we started. So that gives you that directional brush stroke. And then I would just kind of go back over it and make sure that I didn't miss any little spots, that my canvas is fully painted in through there. I'm going to hit the tail feather in a second as well. So this little section in through here, I'm going to just use that light blue and white on my brush. Just kind of give myself a couple little streaks in through there. And then the tail feather itself, I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to pick up a touch of black paint, and I'm going to do, this is kind of like we're seeing part from this side and part from the top. So I just picked up a little bit of black paint on my brush so we can see, with a little bit of water, so we can see the underside of the tail feather on this side, and then we'll see the kind of the inside over in through there, which can get a little confusing the way that we've got this angled, but we'll work it out. That looks pretty good. I'm going to pick up some of that blue or maybe that light blue and ultramarine blue just to get some streaks on this tail feather. That looks nice. I wiped my brush off. I'm going to put a tiny bit more black on there just to get this little inside part so it definitely reads as coming out from a different, yeah, that looks nice. I need to do a little bit on this shoulder area. I don't think that's called the right thing. I just picked up a little bit of black. I'm going to put a little bit of black right here on this area in through here. Just pull it back. Give myself a couple little speckle marks just before I take the black off of my brush, I'm going to put it anywhere else I feel that I need to. I want to kind of get this to look a little bit more cohesive and attached, so just put a little bit more of my black in through here. Make sure everything connects the way that you want it to. This looks good. I've got the back of that part in through there. And now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put some of that burnt sienna type of mixture color up in this little area up in here. I'm just polka dotting it. So again, carrying colors from one area to the other will make it have harmony. I just picked up some white, put a couple little polka dots up in through here. Maybe there's a little texture to this underside of the wing like that. And then if you felt you wanted to or needed to do anything else, feel free to do so. We're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your bird done, you can wash and dry the medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the reflection of our bird in the water, as well as any little ripples that I feel that the bird would have made when he's taking flight. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm going to use are black, tan, white, yellow, orange, brown, blue, and I think that's all my colors. Maybe some peach, that burnt sienna color as well, orange. I'm going to use them all. I'll call them out as I use them. So I wanted to give the illusion that this bird has just left the water, or maybe there's some kind of grass or something over here that it was sitting in and is just lifting off. So I wanted it to look like it's really close to the water. So I can add, I feel like I have some pencil marks over here. So I can add, I'm going to add like little droplets of water coming off the feet, and then my reflection is going to be pretty close. I'm not going to have it way down here. I'm going to have it just skewed in the water in through here, and then we'll have kind of ripples that will make the water look like it was moved by the bird as it was exiting the water. So I'm going to start with my tan color. The trick to this is it is kind of mirror-esque, but because the bird is kind of so close to the water, we're seeing the reflection in the water is the underside of the bird. So it's the underside of here, it's the underside of this one, as well as the underside of that one over there. So it's not going to be reflecting these colors, it would be reflecting similar colors that are on this one because it's the underside of it. So I'll walk you through as I'm doing it. So I'm going to start with a little bit of my tan on my brush, and because I want this to look like it's in the water, I am going to be using thinned out paint a lot of time, which means I'm going to have water on my brush a lot of times just so I can get it to naturally kind of flow into the water itself. So I want to find myself where the tip of my beak is, and then I'm just going to kind of come directly below that until I'm maybe about 3 inches away from the edge of my canvas, bottom of my canvas, and I'm going to go to the right just a little bit. So this is going to be where I start the tip of the beak. And again, I'm just kind of doing this very loosely. And again, this is the underside of it. So I might not see all of the details, but I feel like I want to see some of the side of the face. So I definitely am going to incorporate some of those eye colors or some of the face colors. So I'm just kind of loosely giving myself a shape in through here. Maybe I can see part of this bump down in through here, and then I'm going to just kind of skew out the body in through here. I've got my feet to contend with, so I want to just kind of give myself whatever my center line is going to be of the animal's reflection, so I have kind of a place to start with. So we'll say that this is the reflection of the legs. Going to kind of do this. This is going to go into this body area. So just something that is going to, something that I know is the reflection of a particular body part. And again, the underside is all I'm kind of looking for right now. So I just picked up a little bit more of my tan. I've got my tail feather in through here that I'd probably be seeing the underside of like that. And then I've got my wings to contend with. So I'm going to put a little bit of watered down black on my dirty brush. So again, just watered down black. So again, so I can have a little bit of a footprint of what I want to do. If this is kind of the underside of the neck, I've got the tip of my wing would be, you know, somewhere around there and maybe skewed a little bit. So I'm going to actually bring it past my beak up in through here, and it's going to be kind of pointier here, and then just bring it somewhere meeting in through here. And again, I'm using a water type of brush stroke, so it looks like it's kind of going into or merging with the water itself. I just really want to give myself some kind of perception or thought process as to where I want this wing reflection to go. And then once I've kind of got it on here, again, I'm using thinned out paint so I don't lose my way, and so I can kind of allow for, you know, maybe ripples in the water to just kind of take pieces of this darkness with it as it's rippling through the, you know, as it's moving in the water. But that will give me a pretty good shape for that one. And then this one over here, again, if this is kind of the underside of the neck, I'm going to kind of just bring it off in maybe this direction like this, and then just bring it over in through here. Maybe I want to bring this one up just a little bit more, something like that, just to give more of an edge to that side. And then again, just a little bit of that watered down black paint. So again, my thought process right now is just get myself something that can start my process of adding ripples in the water, giving myself a believable kind of reflection. This should be kind of the same, you know, tie with the same area of the body down in through here. This little wing is just skewed off into the water. We know that they're long. We know that they've got, you know, we're seeing the underside of them. So we don't need to, we don't need them to be too different in color, because the reflection would be showing that underside as opposed to the, you know, what we see out in the reality up above. So that's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit of darkness. Now I can start just kind of building the details loosely. So I'm adding a little bit more black onto my brush to give myself maybe the underside of those legs. Again, a little bit of watered down to give myself the ability to just have skinny lines if I want them to be. I'm going to put a little bit more black underneath this belly, a little bit more black underneath here. And again, I'm thinking reflection. I don't need it to be perfect. I just am looking for kind of a color pattern. I know that I have brown in through here, so I should probably put some brown up and through there, but I have black and blue on the edges of the wings. So I'm going to pick up some of that blue kind of mixture that we had, that light blue mixture, blue and white, put some of that on the tips in through here. Whenever I'm doing reflections, I'm not necessarily looking for mirror images. I'm looking more for a color pattern that is going to give the viewer believable information that this thing that we're seeing in the water is a reflection of that thing up there. I'm going to wash and dry my brush now so I can incorporate some of that brown. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm going to put some brown in through here just to, again, give myself something that will read as similar to up above. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to now pick up a little bit of white paint so I can get the brightness in that head. I need to wash and dry my brush though. So a little bit more white paint. I know that I have, like, the side of the face is white. And again, I know I want to see more of the underside of the bird, but again, I want the viewer to understand what's happening too. So I'm going for some white in through there. I want some of this burnt sienna kind of color on this underside, so just pulling some of that in, maybe some up in through here, a little bit on the wing, and in a minute I'm going to start merging this reflection with the water itself, so that'll make it look even more realistic. And now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush to get this underside shadow of that neck. I'm going to put a little bit on the top to get that the iconic little feather at the top of the head, something like that. Got a little eye in through there, maybe a little bit more underneath this side and through here. And again, just the underside. That's all I'm going for right now. That looks good. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little chrome yellow on. Get a little bit of that beak, chrome yellow beak. Wipe my brush off, pick up a little bit of orange, get a little bit of orange in that beak. Again, very loose, very loose. I'm not doing anything super tight here. Just want to give the information that we're seeing, what we think we're seeing. Let's see, so that's dark, maybe just a little bit. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white and tan just to get maybe this little edge of the wing up in through here, something like that, and do the same thing over in through here. That looks pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some little splashes. I'm going to pick up, I think I'm going to go tan. Just start with tan. Just make some little splashes like that. Wipe my brush off. Pick up a little bit of white. So I did tan and then white. So that way I have some light spots and dark spots to this little water splash coming up like that. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to just start to maneuver this into the water. I think I'm actually going to use my bristle brush to start. I don't know if this is where I'm going to end up, but I want to just kind of allow for some ripples. If the bird came out of the water here, I feel like it would kind of be like pushing the water that way a little bit, so I want to just kind of add some movement to the water. So I'm gonna I'm going for a little bit of blue and white on my brush. Let's see, and we're gonna just kind of, not too much, just a little bit, and I'm gonna just kind of give myself a little kind of ripples in the water, something like this. I don't need to do a whole heck of a lot. I'm putting some water on my brush right now, just a little tiny bit. I'm really just looking to incorporate that reflection into the water itself. So we have that. I don't like that one right there, so I'm gonna just make it go away. I want there to look like there's movement to the water, so the bird, I feel, would have created a little bit of that movement as it exited the water. So just a little bit of white on my dirty brush, and I'm just kind of pulling this over my reflection a little bit, just so that reflection looks like it's part of the water, as opposed to just, sitting on top of the water. And of course you could make yours, so I'm really loosely just kind of pulling this out. I'm going through some wet paint as I'm doing this, which is totally fine by me because that's going to incorporate those colors within the water itself. So that works fine for me. You could even, I'm going back to my medium brush, you could even pull in some of like your sunset colors as if those are twinkling on some of the reflection or on the water ripples themselves. The ripples are going to catch light from elsewhere. So if you're going through this and you're like, I really want to carry some of that orange over here, feel free to do so. I just also picked up some white. So when the water ripples, it will, again, one side of that water can catch the colors from somewhere else. So that's what's going to make it look really nice and natural if you are able to carry those colors from one area of the painting to the next. You could even pull, I just wiped my brush off just for demonstration purposes, I can pull some of this black color from the wing and bring that just down farther into that ripple. So the ripple is, you know, maybe reflecting the colors of the bird in it. So you can really have fun with those ripples in the water and how they kind of reflect and show movement. But I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good. I'm picking up a tiny bit more white paint just to get this to eke out a little bit further into the water and through here. And then I would just let mine dry and see if there's any additional little marks that I want to make. But I'm thinking that that's pretty believable. I'm digging the way that it's looking. I've got my reflection pretty subtle enough where you can see what it is, but it works its way into the water. And then we're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash or put this large brush away, take out a small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I'm going to use my small brush. I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going to go bottom left on this one with orange paint. I like to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name, or you could use a date, you could use a symbol. I like to kind of sign mine in a non-obvious place with subtle colors that are within the painting, but you can make yours as big and bold and beautiful as you want. It's your paint and you get to mark it up whatever way that you want, and that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very lively sunset bird, sunrise bird, sunset bird, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.